Pickett had thought that not only would he have artillery support, but that infantry support would come in as soon as it was needed. So he just had no idea that his division, and the other men included, would just go onto this open field and really be left to slaughter, which is what happens.
The Confederate ranks were shot to pieces on the way. Nevertheless, the Confederates were able to take the stone wall that marked the center of the Union battle line and drive the Federals away from it. They drove them, however, back into the arms of other Federals who were there to reinforce. And the reinforcements were able to do the work. They surrounded the Confederate penetration on three sides and made relatively short work of those Confederates who got inside the Union battle line.
The casualties are huge. Nearly half of Pickett's division is lost, is wounded or killed. Something like 32 out of 33 of his field officers wounded or killed. 9 of his generals are down. And it's interesting because if Pickett had led the charge, there's little doubt that he would have been killed or wounded, which maybe would have helped his career or his reputation. But he watches the fiasco that occurs, the defeat, in utter disbelief. As I said, he really thought that surely his men would move forward, but then there would be reinforcements. And this doesn't happen. On the left, some artillery support he counted on had run out of artillery. There's none left after the artillery barrage before the charge. On the other side, on the right, the unit that had been called in to help him lost its way and ended up being shot on from both sides. And Longstreet, as I said, he seemed already convinced himself that it was going to fail, and he seemed to hesitate about sending reinforcements. He finally did, but as I said, it was really too late, and the unit that went didn't do any help. And in those final moments, there are numerous accounts of Pickett crying, of him just being despondent. One artillery officer tells him, riding toward Pickett and asking him, "General, what should I do? I'm waiting, I'm ready, I do have some guns ready for your support, but I don't like the looks of things." And Pickett doesn't even answer him, doesn't look at him, just looks straight ahead and says, "Save your guns, it's over."
I think it's instructive that some observers who watched from the Confederate side paid attention to Lee and noticed that he didn't receive that whole afternoon but about 2 messages. Whereas if you look at the official records of Union Confederate armies, Meade headquarters was buzzing with messages, all coming and going, and Meade was trying to maintain some control of the battle from his headquarters. To the contrary, Lee simply stood on a piece of high ground on Seminary Ridge, watched as much as he could see, and didn't really talk to anyone.
Longstreet evidently sees Pickett, tries to comfort him, tells him it's not quite as bad as it seems, and Pickett just destroyed. As I said, he's crying and repeating over and over again, "My division, my division."
In the wake of Pickett's charge, Lee actually rode out among the survivors who were stumbling back, many of them wounded, all of them scared, and proclaimed, "It's all my fault." Told Pickett himself that his men had performed splendidly and that the fault for their defeat lay with Lee and not with anyone else, and that it would all come right. Lee expected Meade to counterattack, although Meade did not, but he ordered Pickett to rally his men, to try to get them together, form a defensive line, be ready to repel a Federal attack in the wake of the failure of Pickett's charge.
Meade knew, he had a guess that Lee was going to strike at the center. Lee had already tried both flanks of the Union line, the left and the right. And as a matter of fact, the morning of July 3rd, Lee tried again near Culp's Hill, and that failed. So Meade knew that something was going to happen, and he had his men bracing for an attack. And indeed, when the charge began, the men were ready, although they were surprised to see this mile long of men lined up in the open, and it didn't take long for them to get easy sights of the Union artillery, and they could just mow down ranks and be perfectly safe from where they were. Even the Confederate artillery barrage had done very little damage to the Union line, despite Alexander's thoughts or his guess that maybe some of the guns had been pulled out, and he first directs Pickett to move forward. This wasn't really happening. None of the guns were being moved out, they were just kind of being shifted. The Union was very much ready for the attack.